Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show.
It was Widow Petey Sweepy. Sorry.
God. That's so mean. It's because I turn into a pumpkin. You know, I become a complete dumbass after like 9:30.
I know, and I just sit here on my computer until I fall asleep sitting at my computer. It's terrible. It's terrible.
Hey, what do you know of this Virtuality? Have you seen this movie?
Oh, that's a movie name? No.
It's a Peter Berg movie. Starring Nicolaj Coster-Waldau and Sienna Guillory.
And Carrie Bichet.
So you've heard of it.
No, I just looked it up real quick.
I don't know. I actually, this is one of those Netflix finds, right? So I still have the subscribe by DVD plan. Do you still do the DVDs?
I do.
You do, of course. So I have the DVDs coming, and I've made my list over years now, and I don't really remember what's on it. And I usually only reorder right at the top, like when we do a show and I need to watch a movie that I don't already have. And then sometimes I get, it's like I already have the movies that we're doing for 6 or 8 weeks out, and so I don't think about it. And my Netflix queue catches up to movies that I don't ever remember adding to the list. And now we're there. And
that's always
so
fun.
I've got some good ones showing up.
Excellent.
Yeah, so this was one that came today, and you haven't seen it. I apparently there was a reason I put it on. This was probably back when I was in my Friday Night Lights thing.
Oh, it wasn't because of Battleship? I really want to watch more Peter Berg movies. Battleship was so awesome.
I think you're being sarcastic, but I'm not sure.
Oh, Peter.
More Peter Berg sci-fi. Yeah. I actually never saw Battleship, probably for the better.
Probably. I didn't see it either, and I feel okay with that.
You didn't see it, and you're mocking it.
That's right. I'm one of those people.
Well, this has been
Terrible.
a treat so far.
I will say, Peter Berg directed The Rundown, which I love.
I
think that is
love The Rundown. That was fantastic.
Such a great movie.
Yeah.
I hated Very Bad Things. That in and of itself was a very bad thing. I enjoyed the movie Friday Night Lights. I never watched the TV show, but
I did
enjoy
not like the movie. The movie was terrible. The movie was terrible. Who makes a movie like that? That's a terrible movie. You don't make a sports movie and make it end with the protagonist team losing. Spoiler, it sucks.
No, well. Yeah. Anyway, I didn't think it was that bad. The Kingdom was all right. Hancock was all right. Battleship, I never even had interest in that one. And Lone Survivor, I actually still really want to see. All shot in the mountains of New Mexico. I love the magic of the movies. No, it's Afghanistan, really.
That's good. Afghanico. Yes. So Peter Berg. I quite liked Friday Night Lights, the series, at least the first 2 or 3 seasons. And so I give more credit to that.
Gotcha.
Certainly better than the film.
Well, I look forward to hearing what you think of Virtuality. You know what I saw, speaking of movies that you never thought you'd end up watching?
Tell me. Oh, tell me.
I, just to make you happy, watched Tommy Boy.
Did I hear a niner in there?
I actually really liked it. I really was surprised that I left that movie going, wow, that was a lot funnier than I was expecting.
I knew it. I knew it.
I really was surprised.
Andy, that's like the best Valentine you could ever get me.
It was really funny, and actually for like a week after watching it, my wife and I were both like, fat man in a little coat.
You want me for pillow?
Oh, there are definitely some gems in there.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It may be something that I actually watch again because it does have a lot of funny lines.
Bob, you were there.
So you say all these, and I don't really remember them all that well.
See, the problem is I can't do the setup because that would then make us explicit.
Yes, right.
Oh, Tommy Boy, great movie, kids.
Yes, I enjoyed it. So there you go.
Thank you.
Check that off my bucket list.
Totally checked.
Yes.
Consider it. My copy of your bucket list has hereby been amended.
Glad to know it.
Hey, everybody, it's The Next Reel. Thank you so much for hanging out and listening to this show with us. I'm Pete Wright, that's Andy Nelson, and we spoil movies heavily from the beginning to the end. Big spoiler. You can find us at thenextreel.com, where you can read the blog stylings of the goodly, kindly Steve Sarmento. You can find our top lists and listen to all the back episodes of both our special current events, our current release show of the Film Board, and our regular weekly show, The Next Reel, just me and Andy. So it's great fun all around. You should go. You should check it out. You should subscribe for free in iTunes. And if you do, you should maybe leave us a nice comment somewhere or the other. Because, you know, it helps other people find the show in the future. You say nice things. It's like paying it forward. That's what we're saying.
Absolutely.
And I hear we have some people who have paid it forward. They have donated their good karma in the karma bank in the sky.
The big karma bucket.
The big
That's
karma
right.
bucket.
That's right. We've got J.G. Joseph over on iTunes, who gave us 5 stars and said, "Fantastic show for movie lovers. I've really come to look forward to this super entertaining weekly podcast for casual movie lovers. My go-to for Saturday morning runs. These guys know their stuff, but the conversations are extremely accessible. It's fun to learn new things about movies I've been enjoying for years. Keep it up, and thanks for the fantastic show."
Thank you, J.G. Joseph.
Yeah,
Happy
that's
Saturday
very
to you,
nice.
sir. Happy
Yes, indeed.
Saturday.
I hope
Don't
you're
trip.
enjoying your run. Yeah.
Look out. Watch that construction ladder. Look up, it's a
yes.
piano. I could keep going. I'll
Yes, you
save you
could.
that trouble.
That's right.
But I could go. I just want to. I could go. Hold
You
on.
could. I'm glad to
Manhole.
know that, but I think we're going to move on now.
Oh, good. Okay,
then-
so
and then-
the other one.
The other one, over on Flickchart, we have a wonderful comment from Leisha Lynn.
Oh, we don't trust her at all. She's commented before. She has it out for us now, I think.
I think so. I think we disappointed her a couple weeks ago. Spank you for rating The Abyss over Close Encounters. Cameron over Spielberg. Tell me, how does The Abyss get made without Close Encounters and E.T.? What are you boys smoking? So we apologize that we disappointed you, but hopefully it won't happen again.
If you were to rate, say, a slingshot against, say, a bow and arrow, which one would you rate as more impressive?
Wow. Is this like weapon chart?
Yeah. Go ahead. Right?
I would pick a bow and arrow, I guess.
I think that you would. And I think that you would, even though the slingshot being invented was a direct predecessor to the bow and arrow. The bow and arrow could not exist without the slingshot. That doesn't mean the slingshot isn't a nice thing. It just means that this beautiful elvish bow is really something to behold. That's how I feel about The Abyss next to Close Encounters.
That was the most beautiful metaphor that I don't completely get, but thank you for sharing.
I told you it's late, and I start getting flappy.
Elvish bow or David and Goliath. All right. All right.
You're mean. You know what you're supposed to do is just say, yes, Pete, you're so smart.
Yes, Pete, you're so smart.
Well, now it doesn't mean anything because I had to coach you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to read the script before we started.
God.
Oh.
Well, thank you, Leisha Lynn.
It is nice to hear, even if
Even if she doesn't like us. You know what the funny thing is that she's the one who's given us so many ideas for movies to talk about.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for trying to continually straighten us out.
She does. She works so hard at it. I love that she's out there.
Yes, indeed.
Andy, with that, I think you need to give us the update on Andy versus the People.
You know, it's been a little rough spell for me.
I'm having trouble shaking it.
I am. I got to really sort things out this week. Yes, you know, I thought I'd, switch things up a little bit and do a little animation and put something on there that, it didn't necessarily look that obvious. I guess that in the world of animation, an animated world can be pretty easily identified. That's all I can think of. But Cameron L. Ryan came through right on the first image and nailed it as My Neighbor Totoro. So congratulations. You beat me again. but I'll be back. So I'll keep plugging away. See if I can come up with something this week that'll stump everybody.
Wow.
But yes, Cameron L. Ryan is again entered into the drawing for our Pony Prize.
Now, did this have anything to do with some sort of specific cinema architecture?
Well, it's funny that you say that. And foolishly, because she really nailed it several times when I put up architecture as the image. And the first image I put up was a building, like a little hut. And she knew right away that was Totoro.
Now she knows animated cinema architecture, too.
I know.
At this point, I am forced to dare you, sir, to put up no pictures of structures at all.
That's what I'm going to do this week. This going to have to be nary a structure in order to see if I can really best this unruly bunch.
The game is afoot. Oh, that I did do. I did watch all 3 of this season's Sherlock. Footnote. I mean, I just have to go back to our earlier conversation. I did do something great. It's great.
I haven't watched any of those.
Oh, stop it.
I know.
Let's talk about trailers.
Let's. Did you see The Talented Mr. Ripley when it came out, like 2000 or 99?
I did not see it in the theater. I saw it a couple of years, or a couple of whiles later.
You saw it eventually.
I did see it eventually.
Well, it was one of those films that I liked it, but it didn't like knock me out of my seat or anything like that. But it is a film that has stuck with me over the years. I find that the story and just the nature of this character as he kind of creates these fake lives and moves through these other people's lives and kind of destroying them. I really enjoyed that concept, and there are definitely some haunting images in that film that have stuck with me all this time. The film that Anthony Minghella directed, and it was back in '99. Well, this new film for the trailer I'm talking about is called The Two Faces of January, which is also based on a novel by Patricia Highsmith. And I now am, I don't know, I guess I'm finding myself drawn to this film in particular because just the storytelling that she did. And the trailer looks really interesting. It looks dark. It's about a con artist and his wife who it looks like they're on vacation somewhere in Europe, supposedly on vacation. And then this mysterious stranger who comes into their lives, and this con artist starts getting pursued by people because I guess there's a cop that had been murdered. And so they have to use this stranger to help get out of the country. And then it's just kind of how their lives end up getting intertwined. And it looks really interesting. It's got Viggo Mortensen, Kirsten Dunst, and Oscar Isaac as the 3 principals. And so the world that Patricia Highsmith created in Talented Mr. Ripley, that's the first thing that drew me to this, is watching this trailer. I can see already that it looks like something that I will be drawn to, just the kind of the mysterious twists and turns that these characters are going to take over the course of the story. It's also produced by the producers who did Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which is a film I just loved. And it's written and directed by Hossein Amini, who did Drive, or who wrote Drive, which is a film I loved. So it's like, I feel like everything is going for this film, and that makes me want to go watch it. So The Two Faces of January, that's my trailer.
I think it looks really good.
Dark and twisty, and I love Viggo Mortensen playing kind of this dark character. It looks he looks kind of evil and manipulative.
He's another one of those that I just like working on stage or on screen. Like he's just an interesting guy to watch.
He absolutely is.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of twisty dark things, so is my trailer.
Yeah, yours is.
And you know what's ironic about this? It's a Richard Ayoade. Oh, I can never pronounce this guy's name. You know his name? Ayoade.
That sounded good. That's not one that I actually know. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you how you know him. I think you know him anyway.
How's
Richard
that?
Ayoade. He's incredibly funny, this guy. He's incredibly funny. He's a British guy. He is definitely, he's on the record as being kind of a Python guy. He's young. He's directed, I think, only one other feature film, but he's directed a bunch of TV. And, of course, he was in, for a long time, he was in the IT crowd in Britain, where he plays this. This was when it's the two guys and the girl are the IT department of a huge company, and they're in the basement, and it's a comedy that is about them in the basement. And he's hysterically funny, not at all deep and dark and twisty in anything else that I feel like I've seen him in. And then he is also the writer and director of this film, The Double, starring Jesse Eisenberg as Twice, who is it is supposedly a comedy, right? This film, The Double, it is listed
Is it
as
really?
a comedy. It is billed as, quote, a comedy centered on a man who is driven insane by the appearance of his doppelganger. But I do not, and check me on this, I would not characterize it as a comedy by watching the trailer.
The trailer has nothing funny in it whatsoever.
Nothing funny. And yet, given this guy's comedy credentials, I will absolutely go see it and give it a chance. It stars another name that is going to confound me, Mia Wasikowska.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, Jesse Eisenberg, Chris O'Dowd, and Wally Shawn is in it.
Yeah, Sally Hawkins.
There's lots of people.
Yeah, there's quite
Patty Considine is in it. So I mean, it's got
Noah Taylor.
It definitely has comic DNA in it. But does it not look funny?
Yes, it does not. But it looks interesting.
Yeah.
The thing that also makes it not seem like a comedy is the fact that it's based on the novel by Dostoevsky.
Who
It's
is, everybody knows, one of early Soviet comic writers.
Yes, he is. Everybody knows that. Oh, man.
Oh, Fyodor.
Ay.
Yeah. All right.
When does yours open? When does that one open?
It was made last year. It's kind of been languishing in distribution hell a little bit. It opens in the UK on April 4th of this year, and it will hit the US sometime after that.
Looks like May 9th.
Oh, you have a date. Where do you have the date? Look at you
IMDb.
tracking it down.
I know.
I'm looking at it right now. I don't see. Oh, March 24th.
I see May 9th, limited.
See, I see coming soon in theaters March 24th.
Oh, that's New Directors, New Films Film Festival.
I don't even know what you're talking about. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, so it actually will come out 3 times. So see it somewhere.
Yes. So just like The Double.
Yeah. Looks weird.
And mine doesn't have a release date in the U.S., so.
Sad. Oh.
Well.
Hey, let's talk about this movie.
Yes, let's.
Alan Bauer has a very successful business.
Okay, Bauer, you're ruined. You're finished. You're a ghost in this business.
How'd you like some bananas at cost?
Deal.
He's got the wisdom and support of his brother Freddie.
I love this guy. Do you hear me? I love him. Give me a kiss. What's the matter? You too big? Give me a...
I just want to meet a woman. I want to meet a woman, and I want to fall in love. Not much.
And worst of all, Alan Bauer feels with all his heart that he doesn't have one.
Freddie, something in here is not working.
There are worse organs not to be working.
Where to? Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
And then, one day, accidentally, from out of the blue, it happens. Just looking at her is pure ecstasy. Just touching her is a lifelong fantasy come true. Just being in love with her plunges him into a wondrous world of rapture and enchantment. Just one problem stands in his way. A little secret she's trying to keep all to herself.
is a mermaid in New York City.
How come she's got legs?
She has legs out of the water. She has fins in the water.
What about a woman showing up naked in a public place, Freddie? Well, I'm for it, of course. Can I come in?
No!
All right, let me in.
I'll be right there. I'm just changing.
That girl is a mermaid.
All my life, I've been waiting for someone, and when I find her, she's a fish. Nobody said love's perfect. She's really hungry.
Daryl Hannah, Tom Hanks, and John Candy. Splash, a fantastic tale about a fantastic tale.
Come on in, the water's fine.
So this is Tom Hanks.
This is early Tom Hanks, huh?
Yeah.
He was a wee lad, a wee boy.
Yes, right toward the beginning. It's not the beginning, but it's definitely toward the beginning.
Well, because what was the beginning, right? So after what he did, he hung out with old Pete Scolari.
Yeah, he did his TV stuff. Bosom Buddies.
Bosom Babies.
Bosom Babies. That was the prequel TV series that I'm actually writing right now. Oh my, that's terrible. That was 80 to 82. And but he had been doing a lot of guest TV spots on like The Love Boat, on Taxi, Happy Days. His first theatrical film was He Knows You're Alone, which is a really bad horror film about a serial killer who stalks and kills brides before they get married. And it's just a really terrible film. And Tom Hanks's girlfriend, is it his girlfriend or is it him who gets decapitated and their head ends up at the bottom of a fish tank?
I'm not gonna lie to you. I never saw this movie.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
Yes, I had it on VHS, believe it or not.
You actually owned it.
Well, you know, when you're a Tom Hanks fan like me, I pretty much had everything that I could. Yes, I know. Sad, but true. So he did that, and then he did a TV movie, Mazes and Monsters. Kind of that Dungeons and Dragons thing that he did. And
I love this.
Yeah, all this good stuff.
Please keep going.
But it was in Happy Days. You know, he played Dr. Dwayne Twitchell. And he had one episode in Happy Days where he comes in, and he had been, I guess, as a kid, the Fonz was quite the bully. And nowadays, you know, they wouldn't stand for that. But back in the, 60s and 50s and the Happy Days days, it was okay to be a bully. And so the Fonz bullied this kid. And years later, he's all grown up. He had become a black belt and all this stuff. And he comes in to beat up the Fonz. And it's played by Tom Hanks, who comes in and he has this great moment where he's just talking about how great this moment is to finally be able to, take the Fonz down and everything. And little did he know that Lowell Gantz and Babaloo Mandel, who had been doing some writing on Happy Days here and there, they were there that day, and they saw him, and they thought he had great energy, and they happened to have written Night Shift with Ron Howard and Brian Grazer, and the film that they made before Splash, and they were working on Splash with Ron Howard, and they were trying to find somebody to play Alan Bauer, the lead in that film. And they said, well, this guy's really good. And they initially had been thinking Tom Hanks because they liked him in Bosom Buddies and stuff, but they were thinking of him as Freddie, somebody who could have kind of the comedy moments. But when they saw the presence that he had, they're like, oh, maybe we should try him as the lead. And they brought him in and kind of read for him as the lead, and that was history.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like Tom Hanks. I do. How did this movie start? When's the last time, first of all, usual thing, when's the last time you watched it? Before this week?
Well, I have the 20th anniversary DVD, so that came out in '04. So I know I saw it in '04 after I picked it up. And I feel like I watched it time between then and now. So, say 5 years.
Okay. It's been much longer than that for me.
Yeah.
Possibly, well, I don't want to say 30 years because that would be ridiculous. I know I've seen it several times, but it's been at least 10 years since I've seen it. And wow, I don't know. Is it just that movies in the 80s are incredibly dated? I mean, it's not just what they wear and their sort of general appreciation of earth tones in shoes. But just the
and crimped hair.
and crimped hair, that was striking. But I had trouble with the first half of this movie, and I had trouble with Tom Hanks in the first half of this movie.
Oh, really?
I did, and that surprised me. In general, I found it the first half of the movie just sort of plods along, and it's sort of funny. It's like it tries to be funny. It tries to have some humor in it, and I'm not. I don't find myself laughing. I don't necessarily find the John Candy, the sort of buffoonish older brother, particularly funny. I don't find much of the relationship, their relationship as the sort of co-owners of this of their father's fruit business, distribution business, particularly funny. The secretary is funny. That was the electrocuted secretary was funny, but generally awesome. I had some trouble with that, and I didn't quite understand it. Like why am I having trouble with this until I went back and I read the Ebert's original review. Mm-hmm. Did you read this?
I didn't.
Well, I'm gonna read it to you, but I'm gonna stall just a little bit because I didn't have it up. So he made a point that I had not thought about, but totally made sense to me in my view of this film. And so I am going to read that to you. He picking up in the middle after he talks about the story, the background of the story. All right, now that's the situation. But the situation isn't going to be enough. We need some characters here. The mermaid is just fine, as played by the lovely Daryl Hannah. She's young and healthy and touchingly naive. But what about the guy who falls in love with her? It's here that the movie makes its catastrophic casting mistake. You see, they figured they have a comedy as long as the girl has a tail, and a romance whenever she has legs. So they give her a romantic leading man when they should have given her a lonely guy who could swim. The leading man is Tom Hanks. He's conventionally handsome and passably appealing, and he would do in a secondary role. He'd be great, for example, as the straight arrow brother. Instead, they make him the mermaid's lover, and they cast John Candy as the brother. It talks about John Candy a little bit. They should have made Candy the lover and Hanks the brother. Then we'd be on the side of this big lunk who suddenly has a mermaid drop into his life and has to explain her to this creepy swinging singles brother. Plus, there's this sweet touch that this transcendently sexy mermaid has fallen for the tubby loser with the heart of lust and not for the slick brother. See what I mean? Instead, they go the other way. John Candy is not used much in this movie. Tom Hanks comes across as a standard young male lead, and they have to concoct a meaningless and boring subplot in order to make the movie long enough. Don't they know in Hollywood that once all the geniuses think they've finished with the screenplay, you've got to rotate everything 180 degrees, and then you got a movie? So that's the Ebert. I would not go as far as to say it's a catastrophically terrible casting mistake, but I would say I see his point. I found myself not buying the relationship between Daryl Hannah and Tom Hanks. I didn't find him. I didn't find that a compelling enough kind of reason for her to become the fish out of water in this film. And
you felt that having John Candy be that guy would make it compelling?
Well, that's my problem. I don't necessarily think that John Candy would have been that guy either, but certainly somewhere in between. I just felt like Tom Hanks was a little bit too perfect.
Well, And that's, I think the nature of that is that he's not supposed to be the comedy in the story. They talk about this. Ron Howard and Tom Hanks both talk about this. How in the read-throughs, Tom was when he was first there. I mean, it was him and Daryl and Eugene Levy as Walter Kornbluth and John Candy and everyone like Ron Howard and Brian Grazer are all in the room, and they were doing a read-through. And Tom, having just come off of Bosom Buddies and everything, and working with these SCTV stars and Ron Howard, he was pushing for laughs in the read-through, and he was trying to be a funny guy because he was, trying to impress the crowd. And Ron Howard came up and said, "Look, you're not the guy who needs to be the funny guy in this. You are the guy who needs to have you're the love story guy. You are the person who needs to have that honesty throughout this story, not the comedy. Let them handle the comedy. That's why they're here. Your story is the romantic comedy, or the romantic part of this story, and we need you to be just an honest character in this." And I buy into that, and it sounds like it's just something that isn't working for you, but I really do buy into the honest performance of Tom Hanks in this, and I find myself buying into the relationship between him and Madison, and I think a lot of that comes from it's a fantasy film. You kind of get that vibe of this story. Obviously, the fact that she's a mermaid, it kind of makes it this fantasy. But right from the start, right out of the gate, you are introduced to this situation back 20 years ago when Alan is a boy and he sees something under the water as his family's on this boat trip off of Cape Cod. He jumps in and it's a mermaid. And there's instantly this connection, and you see that there's a bond between these two characters. And later in the film, you see how that's kind of created this relationship between the two of them, and I really buy into that. I buy into the fact that they meet, they fall in love, and the fact that he is having love issues because he hasn't found what he needs, and it's because it's this fantasy story where he's known what he's needed since he's a kid, and he hasn't been able to find it because she hasn't been around. So I don't know. I guess it doesn't bother me that he's not the funny man.
Well, and I think I think that nails it for me. I think that actually is the problem for me. And maybe it's because when I see Tom Hanks at this age, my expectation is Bosom Buddies, and it's the comedy. But I think the feeling I get in that first hour, and why the first hour stands out to me, is that it feels restrained. It feels awkward that Tom Hanks, who is a naturally funny person in funny roles, even in roles that are, where he can be the straight guy but still have some natural humor, it feels artificially restrained in order to let these other comic elements come through. I'm thinking specifically about some of his later romantic comedies, right? When you talk about, Sleepless in Seattle, for example, where he's just fantastically funny, in a fantastically funny relationship with his son, that I think really shows his natural comedy in a way that doesn't distract from the romance part. And of course, that's years later, and he is a different actor and a much more mature man, and I of course get that. But I feel like this movie really showcases where that restraint comes at a disservice of the film. And I think, well go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and I don't know if I feel that it's as restrained as you're feeling it is. I think that he has plenty of comedic moments throughout the film. I mean, it always stands out for me the moment where he's out. He and his brother are kind of the I can't remember what the role at weddings is called when you're telling people which side of the aisle to sit on.
Yes, the ushers.
The ushers, right? They're doing that, and while they're guiding people in, he's having this conversation with his brother about why his girlfriend left him, how he doesn't have any love to give, and all this stuff, and people keep asking about her. Yeah, and it's just, that explosion that the way that keeps building as people keep asking about her, I mean, is just so funny. And I think to me, that is like that perfect Tom Hanks comedy timing. And I think that it's completely shining through for me.
That's a good example. That is definitely a good example, and I think you're right in that sequence. But I think the general tone for me in the first hour is that of restraint and it's frustration. And when the film picks up for me, it's in that second hour when she's actually uncovered, first she's making a more aggressive attempt to tell him the big secret when they decide that she says yes, they're going to get married. And then she's uncovered at the presidential dinner, and we begin the sort of caper part of the film. And I think that becomes it really becomes a much more infused with energy and excitement. And I think
that's really the last act of it.
Yeah, that's the last act of it, and we have the what's the doctor's name? Dr. Kornbluth becomes a I don't know what the deal is with Eugene Levy in that first hour. He's not a very appealing sort of sociopathic doctor. Researcher, but then in the second act, when he becomes a much more interesting character, when he becomes a character that is less driven, and I think it's just as an actor, he's much more affable in that role, in the secondary role, than in the primary role of the film. So, and I think when you look at his roles since Splash, as well, it's much more the affable part than the kind of weird obsessive part. Which I didn't find as appealing. So
I don't know. I love him as Kornbluth, and I think that his bits with the moron twins are I don't know. They always make me laugh. I mean, I come from a place with this film where I've seen it probably 100 times more than you have. I mean, I grew up watching this film. I mean, I had forgotten how much of this film I have memorized. And sitting and watching it, I mean, I was just quoting along with the lines, and my wife kept looking at me, almost flabbergasted that here's a film that I hadn't seen in 5 or 10 years, and I was still like quoting the lines like I just saw it yesterday. So,
it was the Swedish doctor bit that has me in stitches every time. I mean, that's the like stuff that drops in that second half of the movie, the capers bits. I mean, I'm totally with you. I really like it. And
so you just don't like the love. You don't like the romantic love story side of the film.
No, I find it like just sort of dry and not very interesting. And I find Daryl Hannah is sort of she's dare I say, and I'm gonna get letters.
You're gonna piss me off too. But say it.
I don't want to compare her to Costner, but she's a little wooden in this film.
What? Okay. Step back a second. This is a person who is a mermaid. She has no sense of our world, right? She lives under the water. She comes up, doesn't know any English or anything. And, actually, step back even before that.
Stepping.
When we first meet her, it's when she rescues Tom Hanks after he jumps off the boat and gets his head hit, when Mr. Fat Jack decides to go get the little boat. Another great moment, which I just always laugh about. But Daryl, we see her first kind of peeking over the bushes and everything, looking at him in the sand, and as they have that conversation, or he has that, trying to figure out who she is and all that, and she comes up and kisses him and jumps in the water. Right from the start, there is something about her that has this innocent nature to it, and it's almost like this animalistic quality, and there's like nothing in her performance that I find that stands out as she's thinking too much about it. She really comes across as this very honest, almost curious being that doesn't really. She's trying to understand things, and whether it's exploring, trying to figure him out on the island after saving him, or watching TV, or walking down the street with him and trying to figure out what everything is, and even like the way that she eats the lobster, everything that she does in the story, all is just this honest nature to it that I think is so far from being wooden. I find it like 100% committed to just being like this totally different type of being.
Yeah, and I feel like she's just dragged around a lot. And even the sequences, now I'm going to give you the lobster. The lobster I think is funny. And when she has that exchange and says, I'm sorry, that's just the way we eat lobster where I'm from. I find that, I find that amusing. But the pieces that I remember, the like Keystone moments, right? The trailer moments, when she says her name and all the TVs explode.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that as much funnier than I experienced it. And it just didn't quite hold up, and it was just awkward and dry to me in this, and that's what I mean by maybe this is just an experience of watching a film that is just naturally appears dated. I don't know, but the romance part of it left me wanting.
Well, and I think that there very much could be that to it. I mean, this is a 30-year-old film with 30-year-old sensibilities, and comparing it to kind of just the modern comedy pacing and the modern romantic comedy style of filmmaking and everything, I think that there definitely is a lot of elements that have kind of changed and grown over those 30 years. And so, yes, if you're not kind of stepping back and putting yourself into that place where it's, looking at this is a film that was made 30 years ago, then you may have a really hard time getting into it.
Possibly, but you know what, Andy, to your point, I mean, we did Pale Rider, and that's a film made in 85, and I don't think, I absolutely wouldn't say,
and it's a period film, though. I don't know if that's period
maybe that's
films
the same
are,
thing.
Yeah.
But I'd compare that to 3:10 to Yuma in a very favorable light. And
well, here let me test this on you, because and I don't know if this is a good test, and I don't know if it's going to work in my favor, but I'm going to try it anyway.
Okay, no, this is fair. That's fair.
These are the top 10 films from 1984.
Good.
Of which Splash is one of them. And I think, well, okay, let me just read through the list. Beverly Hills Cop, #1 film for the year. Ghostbusters, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which we've talked about on the show. Gremlins, The Karate Kid, Police Academy, Footloose, Romancing the Stone, Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, and Splash. I would challenge you to say that all of those films have dated elements in them. And I enjoy those films. Well, most of those films. I haven't seen some of them in quite a while, and I probably won't be watching Police Academy again. But I would say for the most part, while those films are still vastly enjoyable and entertaining, they still are very dated. Romancing the Stone has some amazingly dated elements in it, but I still think it's a great, adventure romp. And I think Splash is a great romantic comedy with this fantastical element of the mermaid thrown in, even if it is dated.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't know where you're looking at that list, but I brought it up on IMDb, the top U.S. grossing feature films in 1984, and so you read so fast I didn't quite get it, but the list that I'm looking at has Ghostbusters at the top, which I say absolutely holds up.
Well, I just watched Ghostbusters a couple weeks ago, and I think it is so dated. I mean, I still enjoy it, but it is a very dated film.
It doesn't feel dated to me like Splash
it feels
does.
it feels more dated to me than Splash.
What? Are you kidding?
I am not kidding.
Okay. Beverly Hills Cop?
I feel it's dated. It's very enjoyable, but I
watched it probably about 2 years ago. And I didn't get that same feel. It is dated. It feels like an 80s film, but it doesn't feel to me like Splash does. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, again, there is a period film, and
I
that
think
doesn't.
Period films, period films
that's kind of out of there. Karate Kid doesn't hold up at all.
No,
that's a hot mess of date.
Yeah,
and same thing I think with Police Academy and Footloose.
Gremlins, I think, is a fantastic film.
Yeah, that's
but also but it also feels dated.
Yeah, but it's a little bit. I don't know. Phoebe Cates, whatever.
But Footloose, Police Academy. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where I feel like it could be the genre. I mean,
It could be that
Ghostbusters,
I don't
Beverly
like
Hills
the
Cop.
80s. That's possible.
But you like Ghostbusters, you like Beverly Hills Cop. I mean, see, you're. I don't think that's it. I think it's you don't like the romantic comedy in the 80s.
Yeah, it's possible. I wouldn't be able to comment on something like Romancing the Stone. It's been too long since I've seen it.
That's a good one.
How does it compare to you with Splash?
Well, I like I said, it's dated. I feel that it's dated, but as an adventure film, I still think it really holds up. But you hear Alan Silvestri's music kick in there, and it's just like, wow, this is definitely of a different time.
Yeah.
But it is a lot of fun. You step back into that time. It's like any film. It's like going back to watching some of the great 70s films or the films from the 50s, whatever. Films that are of the time that aren't necessarily like the kind of the classics. I feel like there's going to be something that dates them.
We've talked about this before, and I think the 70s, though, the films that were particularly of the time of the 70s hold up actually better than some of the films of the 80s. The films of the 80s, which seem so sort of saccharine and plastic, and we don't kind of regain that sense of reality. This film feels unreal to me. It feels unnatural. Even the fantasy part of it that I'm supposed to acknowledge is unreal, it feels, it just feels a bridge too fake.
Wow.
To me, just even the romance, even the relationship of it, and it doesn't get interesting to me until it picks up speed in the second act, where it becomes a little bit more volatile.
Till the third act.
Third act, yeah. So there you go.
That makes me sad.
I know it does, and I felt bad coming into this. I really did.
This is another Taxi Driver.
Maybe. No, not so much. I would watch this before Taxi Driver any day of the week.
Oh, man. I would too, actually. But I am a bit of a junkie. What can I say?
Now, how does this hold up to Splash 2 or Splash also?
Oh, Splash 2. Man, that's
Amy
a decision.
Yazbek.
That's a decision that Disney made that really was just a cash grab, just a terrible decision on their part. It's not even a cash grab, really. I mean, they did it as their Disney Sunday movie. It's like a 2-part Disney Sunday movie. It's like, I don't know what they were thinking with that. It was a bad decision all around, and it should never have happened.
It's so funny. The promotional picture looks like a Sunday picnic on the cast of Dallas. Like just before JR got shot.
Yeah, it's terrible.
That's not good.
And it doesn't even fit in context of the final moments of the film.
No.
Where she says, if you come with me, you can never go back.
And Splash 2, yeah, they come back.
Yeah, and then they come back. And then they decide to stay. It's like,
it's not good.
Yeah.
So I know it's just gonna you
I'm
buy
crying
it,
on the inside.
You buy it hook, line, and sinker all the way through the end. You like the way it ends. You like the big climax.
I love everything about it. It's.
Is this one of those that because I'm middling to fair on this film, you like it even more?
This is my favorite film of all time now, mister. No.
Splash versus Network. I dare you.
Oh no, but I do really love this film.
I see it. I recognize that, and I was just not as I think probably not as touched by this film when I saw it in the 80s, for one reason or another. I don't know.
And it at the time, 1984, it did really well for itself. It was nominated for Best Original Screenplay. So take that.
What's up with that? That little bit of insanity.
Oh, come on.
How do you think this shines as a Ron Howard joint?
He had a great start, obviously. I mean, working in the industry since he was a wee lad. I think that he, got his start working with some of the Roger Corman projects, and Night Shift was his first solo project, and it did well enough for him to kind of make a mark and get another project. It didn't do gangbusters or anything, but Splash was the next film that he did, And this was a tricky film. I believe it was actually an idea that Brian Grazer had. That I think the way that it works, I think he had Bruce J. Friedman write the script. Brian didn't like that script, and then they said, "Hey, let's bring Lowell and Babaloo on. They did such a great job on Night Shift," and so they brought those two on to rework the script, and they came up with the script that we have now. And it's, I think it's a great script. I think Ron Howard did a great job telling this story and making this film. And I didn't go into this remembering this, but Tom Hanks, I mean, his career really, was birthed out of this project with Ron Howard, who he has now gone on to act in 4 of his films. He did this, he did Apollo 13, and then he did the Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons films.
Right.
So they definitely have created a really solid working relationship that has lasted the test of time, and they kind of keep coming back and working on projects with each other, and I'm guessing that they probably will continue to do so. I think that this shows a lot of great skill for, I do. I know you have your issues, but I think it shows a solid director telling a story with good actors that know how to, they get the jokes, they fit within the context of what the story that they're trying to tell is, they understand the fantasy elements, and I think that Ron was able to put all of that in place as it needed to be in order to tell a very effective story. I mean, I don't think this film would have done nearly as well as it did if, maybe somebody, but I think Ron Howard really knew how to tell the story right.
I think Ron Howard has a good voice for these sort of fantastic journeys, and I think he's a natural at it. And I think that shows in his more sophisticated films too. I mean, you get a kind of a great sort of fantastic journey when you look at films like Apollo 13, and when you look at I was going to start with Cocoon, but it gets more sophisticated when you look at sort of Apollo 13 and leading up toward the present. I think he has a good sense of structure. It's and a good sense of where formula really works well.
Yeah.
And why formula is a formula. And that I think has been really foundational to his sensibilities as a director.
Yeah, he really has kind of built a career on the Hollywood structure and the Hollywood formula of telling stories. I mean, you look at the list of films, and I mean, there are a lot of them on here that I just don't like at all because they feel so formulaic. But that doesn't mean that he didn't make an effective film. It's just, for me, it didn't work out,
I will tell you, one of his films is one of my potential guilty pleasure films. And it's not Grand Theft Auto 1977.
Don't tell me it's How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
I'm not going to tell you that. I'm certainly not going to tell you that.
Oh man, that scares me.
I know.
Scares me.
It's one of the non-tentpole Howard films that it may end up on your watch list.
Interesting.
Yeah. Think about that.
I think I know what it is.
I don't think you do.
I think I do.
Take 5, 1987 TV movie.
Got me.
Gung Ho.
No, I know what it is.
Damn it. I've said too much.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have. No, but I do like I like him as a director. I just don't always like his films.
Yeah.
The story of getting Splash made was actually an interesting one because they went around to all the studios trying to find somebody who was interested, and they'd kind of develop one with the studio for a little bit, and then the studio would finally say no, and it kind of went back and forth. And if no one wanted to be a home for this film, and then they learned that there was another mermaid film that was going into production over at Warner Brothers that had Warren Beatty starring in it, and I can't remember who the lady was who was going to be the mermaid, but it was going to be just a big budget mermaid film, and so they kind of had a panic, and they ended up over at Disney. And Disney liked Splash, and they thought that, this would be a good film for them to do, but they were concerned that about this other mermaid film. And Ron Howard told them, look, I can do it for less money, I can do it faster, and we can get it into theaters before them. And they liked that, and so they kind of came on board. But they were a little concerned about some of the stuff in the script. It was they'd been going through an interesting period with some of their films that had been perceived as kind of non-Disney-ish sorts of films. Like starting in the late 70s, they did Black Hole, which was their first PG film, and then they did just a series of other ones like Condor Man, Tron, Tex, Never Cry Wolf, Running Brave, Trenchcoat, all these films that people were starting to criticize. It's like, come on, this can't be a Disney film. There's way too many adult themes in this. And they were getting really nervous about that. And so when the script for Splash came along, they're like, we're going to have to do something else about this. And they actually, especially because okay, you got Daryl Hannah walking up onto the Statue of Liberty park, completely naked. You've got some language in the film. You've got the whole the Swedish penis joke. There's a lot of things in here that were a little more adult themed. And so instead of passing on the project, what they decided to actually do is create a new label. And so this film really is the birth of Touchstone Pictures, which has been in front of many a Disney film since then. It's kind of become the label that is a little more adult. And then they've created some other ones like Hollywood Pictures, which kind of was a little more for the fun, scary ones like Arachnophobia. And, Touchstone Pictures has certainly evolved over time, but this really was the birth of Touchstone Pictures. And once they created that label for it, Disney was just like, okay, you can make the film as is. We aren't going to make you change anything in the script. And so they were able to actually move forward with it with the money they had, which was about $8 million. So, and then they got it done just fast, like Ron Howard said they would. And that other mermaid film that Warren Beatty was going to be in over at Warner Brothers completely fell apart because this one got to the box office first and did so well.
Huh. I didn't catch any of that. I mean, I caught it when you just said it. But that is actually fascinating. You just taught me something.
It's an interesting little history about the way things get made in Hollywood.
Fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to comment a little bit, just back on the production of the film. I want to comment on two things. The first one is the actual mermaid, the mermaidification of Daryl Hannah,
mm-hmm.
which should have been the title of the film.
Because that would have drawn the crowds in.
Right. The tail was great, created by the visual effects artist Robert Short. I thought it was great. It was apparently fully functional and let her outswim everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that's the one thing that didn't actually look weird and plastic to me in this film.
It looks fantastic.
It looks great.
I'm always amazed when I watch it, and as to how realistic everything about her as a mermaid works.
Yeah.
She actually said that the reason that she did so well, I mean, she didn't use a stunt person in the water or anything. She did all of it herself. She said when she was a kid, she was just obsessed with the story of Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid. And she would, when she'd go swimming, she would practice swimming as if she were a mermaid. And so when she actually had this tail on, she just did what she always did as a kid. And she literally was born as a mermaid practically. And so she did really well. She knew how to work that tail.
Yeah. Daryl Hannah. I'll stop,
it's funny.
I'll stop there.
Yeah. It's funny because she, like I said, she does have that quality about her that does seem a little unearthly.
She does.
And I think it worked. I think people really tapped into it in the early 80s because you've got her in Blade Runner, you've got her in this, and you have her in Clan of the Cave Bear, all of which seem to have that real, more of an animalistic sort of sensibility to the characters.
And I think both of those films really highlight her strength in a way that I find not highlighted here. And that sense, oh God, I'm so glad you brought up Blade Runner because you're like proving my point. That sense of innocence that she has in that film is precisely what I wanted to feel out of her in the first half of this film, right? And I just don't feel like I get it. You're exactly right. Like, I totally get what you're saying here, but I don't get that sense of just plain wonder that I get when she meets the toy maker in Blade Runner. Like, that sequence is beautiful. The way she interacts with the world, and so there you have it. Maybe we need more replicants in Splash.
Well, I think it boils down to 80s love stories that is not selling you on her. I think that Blade Runner, classic sci-fi film. So
I'm gonna let you have that. The other thing that I think is fantastic is that the location where they first meet the new Daryl Hannah is Gordy Kay in the Bahamas, is now Castaway Cay, the private island paradise of the Disney Cruise Line.
I think that's awesome. It doesn't surprise me that Disney is like, let's just buy it out.
We're just
make
going
it
to
our
buy
own.
it. Yeah, it's going to be another thing. Anybody else you want to talk about on this film?
Well, John Candy, we already said, was fantastic.
Underutilized.
I don't think so. I think he's utilized perfectly. I think that he's one of those characters who his comedy is so great in this film that I would have felt like there was too much if they kept having him in there.
But
I think that what they have, I think what they have in there is a perfect amount, and I think it rides the line of naughty and raucous, and I don't know. I have no problem with him in this film. I think he's fantastic.
I have a problem with him because I want more of him, and here's why I want more of him. Because at the end of the scene, at the end of the sequence, when Tom Hanks needs to have his big slap in the face turnaround, so that he can go actually fall in love with his mermaid girlfriend, Candy comes up to him and says, "Let's look at what you got." And the "Let's look at what you got" speech is possibly one of the best speeches John Candy gives in film. When he ends it with, "I will never be that happy," and that sequence with him is I think the only straight sequence we get of him, and I could use more of that relationship with those two guys. I think it's really great.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that more of that sort of relationship wouldn't work well in the film, but I think
that's what you said.
In the context of the story that we have, I think that there's enough of him in there.
I think you said you don't like John Candy.
What I do love is that Tom Hanks and John Candy did end up working together again in the future in Volunteers, which is another film that is a guilty pleasure for me. I know it's a completely terrible film, but again, another film I've seen way too many times, and I could probably quote way too many lines from that one.
Awesome.
Such a ridiculous movie, but I love it. John Candy and the tiger in that film is one of the funniest things ever. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. What else do you like about? What else do you want to talk about? Splash.
Eugene Levy, we already said, was SCTV, and I think I love him as Corn Bluth. I think that he's great, and I do love his turn over the course of this film. And I think that the other standout performance that I think is definitely worth pointing out is Dodie Goodman as Mrs. Stimler, the secretary who is struck by lightning and now is just like the wackiest comedy character you could put in a story. I mean, it's so fun. Every time they come in, there's some crazy thing going on with her because of this lightning strike that she suffered. And I love her in this film. She is one of those actresses who had just been in everything. I mean, she had been, somebody described her southern cracked, high-pitched, quivery voice tones as sounding like a Tweety Pie cartoon bird strangling on peanut butter. She had been in Mary Hartman. She was in Grease. Just an actress who had done lots and lots of TV, Different Strokes, Mary Tyler Moore. Just one of those people who's got a great voice and was a lot of fun to see pop up in this.
She was. She just lights up the screen wherever I see her. She was great.
Every time she's on,
yeah.
And then it being a Ron Howard film, he always is throwing in family cameos. We've got Rance Howard, his father, as the angry customer at the beginning, trying to
Oh,
trying
about the
to find
cherries.
trying to find his
Yeah.
cherries. Right. Yep. That's Dad. And then Clint, his brother, is always in his films, and Clint's cameo is the one coming into the wedding who is just like, "Hi, Alan. She left me, okay?" That's Clint.
Yeah.
He's the one that he goes off on. So it's and then I believe this was early in his career, and he was putting in his. I think his wife was one of the women at the wedding that his brother Freddie was dropping the coins on the ground and looking up her skirt.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Excellent combination of Howard family.
Yes.
Actors.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other thing that I wanted to say is the cinematography in this film.
Donald Peterman.
Yeah, I think looks really great. He really specifically chose to not shoot this like a typical comedy at the time, which was just very flat lighting. A lot of times with comedies and romantic comedies, they just want the look to be flat and just straight because they want the comedy to stand out. He chose specifically to light this as more naturalistic because he wanted to create more of that romance with it. And so, like the moment when Alan goes into the police station to look for to find Madison when she first pops up in New York, he looks over at her on the benches behind, and you've got the blinds right there and that gorgeous light just coming through, and just the way that the light looks. I mean, it is very romantic, and it is very beautiful lighting all through this film if you watch it and you notice it.
Well, I think I agree with you about the police station scene. I also think the real highlight sequences come for me, in when she's in the tank. I think he does a fantastic job lighting the isolated water there, and does some great things with the her being backlit as her the skin is starting to rot off the tail.
Right.
And there are some just wonderful sequences there, and a lot of really interesting stuff of putting the camera at half height on the water, so you see the weird magnification of their shoulders under the water, even as they're having a conversation above the water.
Right.
When Hanks and Hannah are in the tank together, and I think there's just really interesting use. There's another scene in there. Who played the maniacal doctor with the mustache?
Might as well have been twirling it.
Yeah, right. There's this sequence where he's stomping away, and
Dr. Ross.
Dr. Ross, right?
Richard B. Schull.
Richard B. Schull, that's the one. So when Schull looks down through the grate, and they have that exchange through the grate, and he says, "I don't consider you a colleague." That's one of my favorite moves of the camera there, as the exchange between Dr. Kornbluth and Dr. Richard
Ross.
Schull, Dr. Ross.
Dr. Ross,
I think that was fantastic.
Yeah, he had been in Clute.
Yes, that's right. That's where we've heard him.
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
The score is very dated, but I still like it. Lee Holdridge did the music for the film.
Yes.
It does have a very dated feel to it. I definitely give you that. And throwing the Rita Coolidge song on at the end,
it does not work.
It definitely gives you the dated feel. Yes, I'm still a sucker for that song. I admit it. I unabashedly love this film. What can I say? Every piece. And then the last thing that I wanted to say is this film, because of the way that Tom Hanks basically names Madison, or names the mermaid, because he can't say her name, he gives her the name Madison, which she really likes because they happen to be on Madison Avenue in New York City. This film created an upsurge in the name Madison in girls, and it had hardly been used at all, like in the 70s, like nothing. And then in the 80s, all of a sudden it started becoming really popular because of this film. And the name just skyrocketed to the point where I think right now where we are right now in the 2000s, it's like one of the top 10 names for girls being born right now. It's just amazing how popular that name is, and it's because of this film.
Being born right now.
The second that somebody's listening to this.
Wow, that's grim.
That's a lot of them.
I'm scrolling through. There's a fantastic link with an animated GIF of the most popular baby names by state between 1961 and today. And I'm trying to find where Madison takes off, because it does. You're right. You can watch the map by state as Madison just sort of sweeps the country.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it on babynamewizard.com. In the 70s, it's 0. In the 80s, it's ranked at 538. In the 90s, it's 29, and then as of 2005, it was number 3.
Yeah, wow. In 2002, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And then Emma makes a strong showing. Then Madison comes back in 2004. Madison comes back with a bullet in 2004. Emma's still putting up a fight. But wow, by... get a load of this. By 2012, Sophia, Olivia are making, and Emma are making an incredible comeback.
And one of my daughter Olivia's best friends is named Madison.
And my daughter Sophie, and one of her best friends is Emma.
See, it's we just fit into the norm.
Oh, look
I guess.
at us, the norm. Yeah. Okay. This movie, given what it cost to make, did pretty darn well.
Yeah, this film, like I said, it cost about $8 million to make. In today's dollars, that's almost $18 million. And I couldn't find any other figures as far as prints and advertising and everything, but it made domestically almost $70 million, which adjusted to be about $156 million. Couldn't find any international figures, but all told, that still is pretty good. And, adjusted profit per finished minute, we're looking at about 1.2 million per finished minute. So yeah, it's up there. It's right below All the President's Men as far as films that are adjusted for profit per finished minute.
I wonder how it'll do in our stack ranking. I say we flick chart this thing.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it. Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel. You can like us over there. Become our friend on Flickchart, and you can we can see if we like the same movies. That'd be good. You should do that.
All right, Splash or Gattaca. This is going to be such a hard ranking because
I have a feeling we're going to be averaging a lot of our scores.
This is like the head or the heart sort of ranking.
Yeah.
I would pick Splash over Gattaca.
Yeah, see, I would pick Gattaca.
Oh,
how important is it to you?
It's come on. Gattaca is just so boring. It's like one of the I just can't sell you. I don't know. Oh.
Andy, I'm not a man who isn't willing to be bought. I just want you to look at the rest of the list and think to yourself, what else is this going to go up against that you're going to feel even stronger about?
Well, then
hopefully we'll never reach it if you go with me. I'm going to give you. I'll give you Gattaca for now.
All right. Yes. All right. Splash or the Outlaw Josie Wales. Oh, this is just not fair.
And
I'm going to say Splash.
Are you serious? Seriously?
You don't know how many times I've seen this film. It's it's locked into my brain. But I will give you Outlaw Josie Wales.
All right.
How's that?
That's good. That's fair.
Splash or The Natural, the baseball ghost story. I'm going to perpetually have that locked into my brain now.
The baseball ghost story.
Oh, man. Both the 1984 films, Splash did better than The Natural. I say we vote on how much money it made. Let's do Splash.
Versus The Natural based on total box office receipts.
Oh.
Then Splash. So you're saying Splash wins it?
Yes.
All right. I mean, I can't think of any other way to do it when we just disagree like this.
I know. Splash or The Social Network?
Oh, come on.
I'm giving you The Social Network. I agree.
All right.
I'm not even giving it to you. I
you agree. Okay.
Splash or Zero Dark 30? Zero Dark 30.
Okay. Now I'm hearing some reasonable behavior.
Oh, it's like my 12-year-old is coming out. What can I say?
I'm taking my ball and my laser discs and I'm going home.
Splash or the Maltese Falcon?
Well, I can feel this one coming.
I will give you Maltese Falcon. It's a classic.
God, I feel like you're gonna send somebody to collect one of my fingers.
Now here's an interesting one: Splash or Joe versus the Volcano?
Oh, this is gonna torture you. It's no sweat. For me.
It's Joe versus the Volcano for me. Oh. But I found it really interesting. Tom Hanks comparison, especially because Joe versus the Volcano is looked at with such disdain,
I know.
Whereas Splash is looked at as such a big critical success. But I do think Joe is the more unique story.
Interesting, compelling, and funny. And not just funny, but witty.
Yeah.
Like there is wit and subversive wit in that film that I think is really fascinating.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Splash is number 45 out of 121. I know that's much higher than you'd like.
That's fair. That it, everything moves.
That's right.
Well, this was a tough one to do, but I'm pretty excited about next week. Where do we go from here?
Well, we are going to be, I feel like we should have planned this to be hitting every 10 years in his career, because next year we're going 10 years to Forrest Gump. And then we could have gone to 2004, but 2014, he hasn't had anything yet, so it would have been a little hard this year, but still.
Well, I'm excited about it.
I am too. I'm very excited about Forrest Gump. I love the film, and I'm excited to revisit it.
Me too. This is now this gives us, I think, more meat for me.
For you. It's definitely more of a meaty film. Splash is, going back to when we had our series on romantic comedies, it definitely fits into the vibe of those films that we were talking about there. It may not be as smart as like 500 Days of Summer or I can't remember what the other ones, but it definitely fits within that genre more. And I think in that context, being a genre that it's not one of the genres that typically either of us jump to when we're going to pick a movie.
True.
I think that it's, and being that kind of that plasticky 80s, I can see why that for a lot of people, it's a film that it's not going to be one that they want to put on as regularly.
Yeah.
And Forrest Gump, and it's kind of just that love story. That's the story. Whereas Forrest Gump does have a lot more meat going on in it.
Yeah. I think so too. Okay. I feel like our relationship has survived another disagreement.
Next week, Splash 2.
All right. I gotta go to bed.
It is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
So many great conversations over the years about so many great movies.
And some stinkers.
Well, true. But producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
In Season 3, we covered even more great adaptations like The Night of the Hunter and It Happened One Night, both part of our Couples on the Run series.
We talked about No Country for Old Men. The Coen brothers so rarely adapt someone else's work.
We had some fun rom-com adaptations like About a Boy, based on the Nick Hornby novel, and Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, adapted from Rachel Cohn and David Levithan's book.
In our terribly and naively named foreign language series, we discussed The Brilliant City of God and The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, which I won't ever be able to watch again, ever.
But could you read the original memoir?
I don't know, maybe?
We had our Richard Dysart series with adaptations like The Day of the Locust and Being There.
Plus, we had that fantastic interview with the man himself.
The one where we had him sit on the floor.
Because this chair was so squeaky. Good times.
We did our first Tom Hanks series with Forrest Gump, adapted from Winston Groom's novel, plus Apollo 13, based on Lost Moon by Jim Lovell.
And we did another year series looking at films from 1981, including Das Boot, Gallipoli, and Thief, all based on books.
Listeners can dive deeper into all of these original stories and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book, play,
movie,
video game. You bet. We have talked about some video game adaptations as well. It doesn't matter the source, just follow the link. Every purchase supports the podcast.
Check out the full list at thenextreel.com/originals and get reading, watching, performing, or playing today.